Welcome to Bible Journey, everybody. I am Derek, and today we are in with a new video on the book of Ezekiel. We are diving into chapter 1, and last week, the last video, not last week, actually it was just a couple days ago, but the last video was an overview of the book of Ezekiel, some of its major themes, like the temple, the glory of God departing the temple, and later on the new temple coming back. Today we're diving into chapter 1. Now, Ezekiel was a priest. He says that right in the first chapter. He was in exile in Babylon somewhere for some years, but for right now, for our purposes, around 590 BC and maybe even 600 BC. And actually, I think he went in one of the earlier deportations. There was like 2 or 3 deportations where they took Israelites. On the last one, they destroyed the temple, laid waste to Jerusalem. I think he was in the first deportation. So he was in exile in Babylon. And so the book opens up and he says he's by the river Chebar or Kibar, however you want to pronounce that. And so he's by this river, which is in Babylon. And all of a sudden, he says he looks to the north. And out of the north, he's seeing a storm wind. It could be like a tornado or like a tempest or a storm front that's coming this way, that's coming his way. And as it approaches, he says he looks in it and he sees in the tornado or in the storm front, like glowing metal, and then around the storm or the tempest, the tornado is like a shining light. And as it gets closer, and as he looks in, he sees 4 living creatures. Now, later on, he calls these cherubim, a type of angel, if you will. And he described these 4 what he calls living creatures, or these beings, and they have 4 faces, they have 4 wings, and under the wings they have arms and hands like a man. And they have 4 faces, and so he says the first one looks like a man, the second an ox, the third a lion, and the fourth an eagle, I'm sorry. Man, ox, lion, eagle. So they have 4 faces. And when he describes when they move, they don't turn. So imagine having 4 faces. So if I want to move to the left, in other words, I don't have to go like that. I can just move this way or move back, right? That's how he's describing these beings. He also says these beings have beside them a wheel. And he describes this wheel as kind of a stone, like a gleaming stone. And it's full of eyes. And not only is it one wheel, but he describes it as a wheel within a wheel, or a wheel within a wheel, right? Almost maybe some say like a gyroscope, a wheel within a wheel. And it's full of eyes. And he goes on to say later on in the chapter and other chapters too, because he talks about this through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and others. In chapter 8, he goes into some of this. He repeats this. I'll get back to that in a moment. He talks about the vision because he sees the vision again. But so he sees these beings, as I described, 4 faces. They have 4 wings. The faces are the man, the ox, the lion, and the eagle. And beside them, he said there's these wheel within a wheel, full of eyes, gleaming. And he says that the spirit of the living beings are in the wheels. And wherever the wheels go, when these cherubims rise, or the living creatures, these cherubims rise from the earth, the wheels will rise with them. Or if they move, they'll move with them. And when they move, they don't turn left or right. They just go like this, right? They just go whatever. If they go back, think about having 4 faces. You don't have to turn and go. And then he goes on and he says, he looks up above that and sees an expanse. And this expanse, he describes as like crystal, or maybe some may even say like ice. And above this expanse is a throne, and that throne in the New American Standard is described as lapis lazuli, or like a gemstone of some kind, maybe blue, maybe green. And on this throne is sitting someone who looks like a man. And this man, he describes this man from the waist down as, from the waist down like to the feet, like something like fire, and from the waist up like glowing metal with fire. And around him, around the throne, and around this person that looks like a man is a rainbow. He says like a rainbow on a rainy day. So, but it's in a circumference. So he's seeing this rainbow as it around the throne. Some people say that, I've never seen one. They say if you see a rainbow, if you're up in an airplane, you can see it like at a circumference, like a circle. Pretty cool. And so he sees this vision, and he says he falls on his face and in reverence. And then later on in the chapter, basically what he says at the end of chapter 1, this is the likeness of the glory of God. This is the likeness of the glory of God. It's interesting that he uses that word likeness. I think maybe he's using that word, and this is my opinion. Like I said, hey, you dive into this stuff, get into commentaries, ask and pray, and ask God for guidance. So just don't take my word for it. But hey, this is a journey, and I'm Bible journey, and I'm inviting you to go along with me. But he uses the word at the end of the chapter, the vision that he's seen. The man on the throne with the rainbow and the fire and the expanse of ice, the four living creatures that are under it, that this is a likeness, a vision of the likeness of glory of God. So it's a likeness, maybe saying, hey, I know this was a vision, right? What he says also in the first couple of chapters, in the beginning of chapter 1, he said he's seen visions of God. He's seen visions of God. Now, I can't get the words out of my old pastor out of my head. It's the Bible's words, not his, but he used to definitely harp on this a lot, and that is in John chapter 1:14, no one has seen God. No one has ever seen God except the only begotten God, that's Jesus, has translated. So as that verse says, that when anybody saw God in the Old Testament, they didn't see the Father. They were seeing a pre-incarnated Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is the likeness and the glory of Jesus Christ in his vision. This vision continues he sees this, just not this time. The pattern goes, and because I was looking at it here, if you pay close attention as the book unfolds, he sees this vision again in chapter 3. He also sees it again in chapter 8, and through really chapter 8 to chapter 10. And it's like during this time in his ministry, at least the first 10 or 11 chapters of his book, it seems, this is my interpretation, but the flow of the book, that when he gets a prophetic instruction, or God gives him instruction, or a prophecy that God has, he sees this vision. You see this happen in chapter 1. You see it happen in chapter 3. You see it happen in chapter 8. It's like he sees this vision again, because at one point he's sitting among the exiles by the river Kibar again, or no, by Tel Aviv, a little town he calls Tel Aviv. And he was sitting there for 7 days. It says he was causing anxiety among the exiles, his Israel brothers. And after 7 days, it said the word of the Lord came to him and said, go out to this plain, like a plain, like, a geographical location. And he goes there and he sees this vision again, and then God gives him more prophetic instruction and visions. And so it's like, at least for the first 11 chapters, occasionally he sees this vision of the likeness of the glory of God, of the four living creatures and the man on the throne. And then he gets prophetic insight or prophetic instruction. So that's chapter 1 today. I just want to end with this, that Ezekiel is what they call, some scholars call apocalyptic literature, there's four, they call it that way: Ezekiel, Daniel, Zechariah, and the book of Revelation. And that's because they show with heavy imagery, prophetic imagery. Like John sees a beast rise out of the sea, right? Well, it's not really a beast. It's a personification, but it has a lot of imagery. And so remember that. So that's the first chapter of Ezekiel. He sees visions of the likeness of the glory of God. That's all for today, and we are next video we're in chapter 2. So God bless you, and we'll talk to you then. Bye.